Right, this has to be one of the worst frames that I've seen in recent memory. And I want to show you all the details in this because a few videos ago, I've done quite a popular video showing you all the really good details that you should look for when buying a frame. And this one epitomizes the complete opposite of that. This has nearly all of the faults that you should look out for when buying a frame. And I want to show them to you so you don't make these same mistakes. Now, the reason this frame is here in the first place is because this customer came into us with front shifting problems. And when we actually got it into the work stand, we could see that the entire crankset would wobble left and right. Now, to diagnose this problem, we took the crankset out and this is what happened. And this is how you remove it. Thumb in, pick it out. Yeah, that's not supposed to happen. And after exploring a ton of options, including warranty, which I'll talk you through later in the video, we actually sent this down to our friend Hambini to put in an entirely new bottom bracket and fix those problems. Now this frame has a ton of other problems, which you probably won't identify in a shop, but we get to see these here as a mechanic. And if you can look out for some of these signs, you might just avoid making the same mistake. First of all, I went on about this loads in the last video about the brake mounts and how flat these need to be and how well they need to be finished. These ones actually look like they've been hacked to pieces by a stonemason and a chisel. They're so badly finished. It looks like the paint overspray has all gone on, and the mechanic who originally built this really struggled to get the brakes aligned. And as a result, they've used some sort of tool in. They've probably used the same part tool, but just done quite a bad job of doing it. And it's really hacked away at all the paintwork. Underneath is just as messy. Now, this does kind of work with a standard caliper if you're using 140mm rotors, because on the calipers it's like a little bridge. But if you were trying to use a brake disc mount to try and take it up to 160mm, which is completely flat, there is almost no chance you're going to get a flat surface for that to actually happen on this bike. Okay, other things. The seat post is a real mess. Inside there is so much paint overspray, it is unreal. Like the little wedge that wedges this sort of square shaped seat post in was really, really stuck. We had to put quite a lot of force in there to get it out in the first place. And all that paint overspray, we're going to try and remove as much of it as we possibly can without oversizing the seat post. But at the moment, that isn't a functioning seat tube. You can barely move the seat post in the frame as it is. Okay, down here at the headset, situation just gets worse. And in here, on this top headset, you can see all that paint overspray. In fact, they haven't even attempted to mask it off or even reface it afterwards. This has just been painted. And if you run your finger around here, it's a really rough surface, which means that bearing is never going to sit flat. So we need to get in there with a headset facing tool, take that back to a nice bare carbon finish that the bearing can actually sit and locate properly. On the bottom here, it's not much better. It actually looks like they've masked this off, but when you run your finger around it, you can feel all the ridges and bobbles of the resin of the carbon in there. And there's loads and loads of paint chipping all the way around it as well. So I'm not sure whether they've gone in there with a facing tool and then tried to repair it afterwards, because the other thing that this frame really exhibits is loads of little loose fibers. Now, you can tell because the paint chips off really, really easily. And when it does, you can run your finger and you actually feel loose fibers. And there's evidence all over this frame of just lots of little paint flicks that are just coming off, just showing that it's probably not been prepared properly before they actually tried to do the paint finish. And then of course, there's always the little finishing touches. It's already missing one of the bottle mounts on there. Easy fix, any bike shop should be able to do that. And here on the braze-on mount for the front mech, you can see that it's not been mounted properly. It's still a little bit askew, and one of the bolts has actually been stripped. So the mechanic doing that has actually damaged one of those bolts there as well. Not a big deal, but on a brand spanking new frame, I think you'd expect better. Right, what we're going to do is we're going to build this frame, get it back up to a working standard. We're going to do all this work to it to try and bring it up to standard as best we possibly can. When it's built, I'm going to get back in front of the camera for you and try and explain the reasons why we've tried to repair this frame as opposed to go down the warranty, crash replacement, and in fact just bin it and buy a new one route. Okay, let's get this customer built and back to its rider. Actually, one more thing. This is the front fork, and I didn't even mention, but inside here, this isn't even actually round. So trying to get a compression bung in there to hold properly is going to be really, really tough. In fact, the rider was actually complaining about the headset always coming loose. So we've got a bit more work to do to ream that out and create a surface where a compression bung can actually grip onto that properly. I mean, this is literally like a hexagon. Right, that's enough said. Let's get on with it. Okay, all done. Now let's address some important questions. That is, was the customer ripped off in this situation, and did we do the right thing as a bike shop? First of all, I just want to say a big thank you to Hambini for fixing this. I think he'll probably feature on his own channel, but to give you enough idea of the work that was involved was that the non-drive side needed actually boring out and making actually 2 specifications. The drive side, as you saw, was massively over specifications and the bottom bracket literally just fell out. So he actually needed to make a custom bottom bracket to fit the new frame specifications. And I think that'll be covered on his own channel. So that's what happened, and I think we've ended up with a really good, smooth running bottom bracket. Now, back to that question, was the customer ripped off? Well, let's add up some of the componentry. So first of all, we've got the receipt here for about £2,500. Now, the Ultegra Di2 group set, this is the R8020, so the slightly older one. This bike's a couple of years old. Now, that was the retail cost of that was £1,800. Now, nobody pays that retail cost, and something more like £1,500 is a much more reasonable sort of actual real world price. Same goes for the wheels. The Cerium SLs from Mavic, really good set of wheels. They're a £750 retail wheel, often on sale for about £500. The Grand Prix 5000 tyres, they're not the tubeless versions, they're just the standard versions. Again, good quality tyres, well done Dolan. 100 quid, easily. The finishing kit, the bars and the stem are all Dida, reasonable quality. The saddle is reasonably quality. So there's another about £200-ish of finishing kit there as well. So that all comes to around £2,300 just for the componentry, leaving about £200 for the actual value of the frame. Now, if you were to try and build a bike to this budget with this componentry yourself, trying to find a frame for £200 I think would be a hell of a challenge. You would probably be stuck with something that you found on AliExpress, secondhand off eBay. In fact, you'd probably struggle to find a Cannondale CAD 12 aluminium, which is a fantastic bike by the way, for around £200 for a frame and fork. So yeah, almost like the frame is almost for free, which makes the economics of how this work mind-boggling, because Dolan obviously had the VAT to pay on this, about £420. There'd be shipping to get a bicycle like this directly to the consumer's door. It took a bike mechanic at the Dolan factory. Remember, these frames might arrive in a container ship from China or whatever, but there's still a mechanic there that had to route all this internal routing for all the hydraulics and the Di2 cable and build the bike and put it back into a box to ship. So there's a fairly big labour cost there. Overheads are running that factory, etc. So our estimations are that this frame probably cost Dolan somewhere around $80 to $90. Landed cost will be a little bit more. So essentially this frame is free. It's, you know, it's almost a cost of sale of selling all the other componentry. It's a bit like buying a coat and having a coat hanger. It's that sort of level of quality. And if you were armed with that knowledge when you brought the bike, would you have still made that investment knowing that you're essentially getting a frame of that sort of quality and value? That's where the argument sits with me, I guess. Now, did we do the right thing? So we had 3 options here. The first option was what we've done, which was to ask an expert like Hambini to repair it for us. We strip the bike down, we send it to him, he custom makes a bottom bracket, sends it back and we rebuild it. And those repair costs are running at around £420, £450. The other option was that we did actually reach out to Dolan and they said it's out of warranty, but we are willing to give you a crash replacement, and they offered us £790 for a new crash replacement frame. That would still mean that we had to strip and rebuild the bike, so there's labour costs in there. So there's about £940 worth of cost if we took option 2. The problem with this is that you end up with a frame that's equally as bad, and if it had the same bottom bracket problem, you're still going to have to fix the bottom bracket, and it could actually have other problems that this frame doesn't have. So I don't think that was a safe, reliable option, because you're basically buying something that's overpriced on the history of knowing that there's problems with this frame. So I don't think that was a great option. Option 3, of course, was just to chalk it all up as a bad deal and go and get yourself a new frame. Now, to get a frame that I would consider good quality, like we featured in a video previously, something like the Cinelli Veltrix, there's some good Argon 18s out there for around the £1,200 mark, which are good, reliable quality that we've got good history with. That's around £1,200, £1,300 for a frame if you shop around. Again, £140-ish labour cost to strip this and rebuild a new one. So we're running at around £1,300 for that. So almost £1,000 more for the cost of a new frame, which is a lot to swallow, really, especially when you've got we thought you had a perfectly good working bicycle. So yeah, I'm going to leave this one up to you. I always question this. This is part of our ethics at Mapdeck Cycle Works, is do the right thing ethics. We had a really good chat with our customer before we did this, and obviously reached out to Hambini to see his opinion as well. And with all that information, we've got a working bike that we've got some confidence in, that we've inspected and we've put right, and yeah, at a reasonable cost, I think. Okay, over to you. Comments below, because nothing quite like the YouTube audience to make a good jury. So please let us know what you think. I'm really keen to hear. Okay, thanks.